For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a half a skein of Lion Brand's Pound of Love in Oxford Grey and Elephant Grey. As for tools, a 5.5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There's a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount. Watch to the end of the video to learn how to enter this week's giveaway. We're using 5 stitches for this project, and they will be as follows: chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Starting off this dress, we're first going to grab our category 4 yarn, make a slip knot, grab our 5.5mm hook, and start off by making a chain that can wrap around the widest part of your bust. And just to let y'all know, I'm going to make a chain of 100, or that comes out to 29 inches or 74 centimeters. Once when we have our chain, we are now going to connect it into the first chain that we made. So all we're going to do is run our thumb along one side of our chain, making sure it's all facing one direction, so that's easier for us to go into the next row. Then we're going to slip stitch into that first chain that we made. So insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, and now we're going to have to do some measuring. Okay, so we are back. We have inserted our hook in with a slip stitch into the first chain that we have. And now, like I said, we're going to have to do some measuring. And the measuring that we're going to do is actually going to be the measuring that we're going to do is actually going to be for the fold that is going to come up and over our shoulders. So however thick you want your fold to be, you're going to take from where we inserted our hook over to the length that you guys want. I have already measured mine out. Mine is going to be 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. And then you guys are going to do the same thing from that stitch marker over. So from here over, I have another 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. Or if you guys want to go by loops, I have just about 13 loops from here to stitch marker number 1, and then 13 from stitch marker number 1 to stitch marker number 2. But now that we have that, we're actually going to start working on the back before we do anything else. But once when we get here, we're actually going to want to try this on. We're going to make sure that this is about an inch above our waist, and then we're going to make a chain that is high enough to reach about mid boob, and then from there we're going to work along the back until we hit our stitch marker number 2, and then we can go in with our full detail from there. So from here, I have already determined the length that I want, so I'm just going to go in with a chain of 21, or that comes out to about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. But you guys can go ahead and adjust for whatever size you guys need. And once when we have our chain, what we're going to do from here is block off that last chain, do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then into that loop that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to be going in with a slip stitch. Let's do the next one together into that next available loop, insert, yarn over, pull through. And from here, just go ahead and put one back loop, not back loop yet, just put one slip stitch into every loop that we have, going back down our chain. And then once we make it down to the base chain, we'll meet each other back so that we can do a slip stitch into that together. Now that we've made it all the way down to our base, we are now going to slip stitch it into the next available loop that we have into our base. So let's find it first. This is the next available loop, and making sure that, I was going to go in the wrong way, making sure that we're going into the opposite direction that we have our stitch markers in, because we're going to be working on the back right now. So right here, there we go, that's why it's easier. Insert, yarn over, pull through. And then once when we have that, we're closed off that first row, we're going to work our way up to the second row, yarn over, pull through, flip our work. And from here, we're just going to go all the way down with back loop slip stitches. So the same deal, just making sure that we're going in through those back loops with a slip stitch. And then once we make it to the end, we're going to meet each other back so that we can do an increase together. Now that we've made it to the end, we're going to do a chain up of 2. That counts as our increase, sort of. We're going to flip our work, and then into that second loop that we have from our hook, we're going to insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through, and then that counts as our increase for the end right here. And from here, go ahead and just put one back loop slip stitch into every loop that we have going back towards our base. Once we hit the base, go ahead and attach it with a slip stitch, just like how we normally do. Work your way back up, and then we're going to do one more increase together, and then I'll let you guys know how far along you guys need to do this portion for. So we have made our way back down, and we are back at the end of our work. This is the side that we're going to be doing our increases on. So do a chain up of 2. Flip our work, and then into that second loop from our hook, go in with that back loop with a slip stitch. And then go ahead and keep going all the way down with back loop slip stitches. And we're going to keep doing this section until this reaches in front of your underarm, but also making sure that it doesn't go up past your underarm because this needs to go underneath it. So keep that in mind while you guys are doing this, and then I will meet you guys back so that we can do that portion together. And then I'll also let you guys know the measurements and how many rows I have in the next clip as well. Okay, so we are back with our increase portion, and then this is actually as high as I'm going to go. And I'm just going to keep going back until this reaches our underarm, but on the back side. So from here, I'm just going to do a chain up of 1 and then do back loop slip stitches going all the way back and forth. No increases, no decreases until this is on the other side of my underarm. So let's just get this started and then I'll let you guys go from there. Oh, and then also my measurements. Just to let you guys know, I have a total of 10 rows, and then this from here all the way down to here, I have just a little bit over 1.5 inches or 4 centimeters, but keep in mind that this does stretch quite a bit while you guys are doing this as well. I know the whole thing, when it's done, it's going to look super duper small, but it does stretch and it'll fit, I promise. But anyways, once when we get here, we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then just go all the way down with back loop slip stitches, connecting into the base the same way that we've been connecting. And then just keep doing that, no increases, no decreases until we get to the other side of our underarm. Okay, so we are back with our little underarm portion, and as you guys can see, we have done a little bit of extra stuff to this. So really quickly before we get started on this back portion, what we're going to want to do is actually count and see how many of these increased rows that we have, and then also how many rows we have of this blunt portion that goes under our arm. So for me, from this first row all the way up until where I stopped doing my increases, I had a total of 10 rows. So when we get here into where this second stitch marker is, the one that's furthest away from our work right now, we're going to count out another 10, insert another stitch marker, and this is just to help us visualize where we need to stop doing our back portion and then also start going into the underarm and then the decrease portion. This is just for us. So from here all the way until however many rows you guys have, go ahead and insert your stitch marker. Like I said, I have 10. And then from this point, we're going to insert another stitch marker, which just so happens to be the same amount of rows that we have right here for our underarm portion. And then go ahead and insert that as well. Just to let you guys know, I have a total of 10 here as well. So I have 20. So from this second stitch marker that I have, that's away from my work, all the way until I inserted my last stitch marker, I have a total of 20 loops. And then from here, we're going to do a little chain up chunk that is going to help us maintain our fold, and then from here all the way down until we hit this stitch marker that we just inserted is going to be our back portion. But now that all of that is out of the way, we can actually go in with the height of the back piece that we need. So what I like to do is measure and see how long I have from my first slip stitch to where I have my first stitch marker. And like I said before, that is a total of, let's look at my notes, 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters or 13 loops. So I actually like to go about 1 inch below that when I go up with my chain up chunk, because I like for my flap to cover the armhole that we have. So instead of going up with a total of 13 chains, which is what I have here, I'm going to go in with 10 chains. But you guys can go ahead and adjust from there. It can be the same amount of chains as you guys want, or it can be less, just as long as you guys are aware that if it is significantly less than what we have, the fold that we have over here may buckle just a little bit. But go ahead and determine however many loops you guys need and make a chain of that count. And then now that we have this little back extender portion, what we're going to do is block off that last chain, do a chain up of 1, into that second loop from our hook, or the one that we just blocked off, go in with a slip stitch. And then from here, this part's going to be super duper easy. We're just going to go all the way down with back loop slip stitches until we hit our base. We're going to connect into the base just like how we normally do. And we're going to keep going back and forth like this with no increases, no decreases until we hit our next stitch marker. And then from there, we can go in with our, let's do it this way so you guys can see. We can go in with our underarm portion, which would be here, and then our decrease portion, which would be from here to here. And then from there, these two front parts will be our fold. So go ahead and keep going back and forth with back loop slip stitches until you guys hit your stitch marker, and then I'll meet you guys back so we can do the rest. Alrighty, so we have made our way all the way down to our stitch marker down here. This is our back portion. I know this looks bananas, but please just keep in mind that it stretches quite a bit. But just to let y'all know, from the first row that we have all the way until where I ended, I have a total of 7 inches or 18 centimeters in total, but yours can be whatever measurement you guys have. I'm just letting you guys know mine. But when we have this, we're going to be going in with our little underarm portion. So the same thing that we did from here to here right before we started doing our increases on this side. So however many rows you guys did here, go ahead and do the same amount of rows. But some quick tips right before we get started. If you guys have actually ended up here and then your next row needs to be your underarm portion, you guys have two options. You guys can either cut and tie, reattach your yarn down here, and then go up the same amount of loops that you guys have on this side, which would still look fine, but that would just mean that the ribbing just for this one row would look just a smidge bit different. But you guys can also, which is another option, work your way back down with another row of back loop slip stitches. But when you guys do that, just keep in mind that when you guys are going in with your underarm portion, however many rows you guys have, you guys are going to be doing that amount, but subtract 1. Because you guys had to go back down, taking away one of these loops down here for the underarm portion. I hope that makes sense. But when we do make our way down here to the bottom, we're just going to go up until we have the same amount of loops. We're going to flip our work, we'll chain up all, flip our work, and then go back down with back loop slip stitches. So when we got here, I actually had a total of 25 loops. So from here, I'm just going to slip stitch into that next loop, which is the one that has my stitch marker in it, go up 25 loops, this is just for mine, do a chain out of 1, 25 back loops down, and then keep doing that for the same amount of rows that you guys had right here, and I had a total of 10 rows. So I'll meet you guys back once we have this portion all finished up. Alrighty, so we have just finished up doing this underarm portion that matches this underarm portion that we have right here. And then now we're going to start working on the decrease section. Well, on this side it was an increase, but over here we're going to be doing a decrease section. But I have some things to talk to you guys about this section first. If you guys remember, however many rows you guys did, we were only increasing into every other row until we got to this high point that we had right here that can reach underneath our underarm. Well, when we got up here, we didn't do any increases, but that still counted as our increased rows because it helped us work our way up to our underarm portion. So as you guys can see from my underarm portion right here to here, I have about 10 rows, and I have those 10 rows right here. But when we start going in with our decrease section, for the first 2 rows, I will not be doing a decrease so that it can match this one over here. And then after that, we will be doing a decrease into every other row to match the increase that we had over here into every other row until we get the same amount of rows that we have right here. So with that being said, I'm just going to go into my next 2 loops that I have with my 25 loops, which is the amount that I have right here. I'm not going to be doing any decreases, but then when we hit my 3rd row, when we're going into the decrease section, I'll meet you guys back so that we can do a decrease together. And if this is a little confusing, you are more than welcome to leave a comment down below. I know it can get a little mind-boggling up in here, but go ahead and do that, or you guys can also grab the pattern, which is linked in the description as well. So go ahead and do the next 2 rows, and then I'll meet y'all back. Okay, so we are back with our 2 rows, and now we're going to do a decrease together. So what we're going to do is do a chain up of 1, flip our work, we're going to insert our hook into that next available back loop, yarn over, pull through, into that next available back loop, yarn over, and we're going to pull through everything that is on our hook. And from here, go ahead and keep going down with back loop slip stitches. Once we hit the base, go ahead and connect into the base just like how we normally do, and then work your way back up, not doing a decrease, because remember we're decreasing into every other row. So I'll meet you guys back once we get back up here so that we can do one more decrease together, and then we'll move on from there. So we have just worked our way back up after our decrease row. We have gone down, slip stitch into the base, came all the way back up, not doing a decrease, and from here we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then going back down towards the base, we're going to be doing another decrease. So into this first available loop, back loop that is, yarn over, pull through, into this next available back loop, yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. And then from here, go ahead and just maintain doing this decrease into every other row sequence all the way down until you guys hit your stitch marker that you guys have left for yourselves, until we need to start doing the folds. So I'll meet you guys back in just a little bit. Alright, so we have made our way all the way down with our decrease portion, and everything is nice and even and everything looks crazy. But when we get here, we're going to go all the way around what we just did with a row of single crochet so that it's easier to connect everything to when we're ready to connect everything. So 2 things, well actually just 1 thing, but if you guys end down here, you guys can go ahead and just do a chain up of 1 and then work your way all the way up and around. Or if you guys ended up here, go ahead and cut and tie, reattach your yarn down here, making sure that you guys are going into the same loop that our work is currently in, because we don't want to take away any of the loops that we have for the fold, and then just go all the way around with single crochets again. So that is going to be completely up to you. When it comes to these top portions, try your best. I know it's not going to be 100% possible, but try your best to put 1 single crochet into each of these side slip stitch rows. So for example, from here to here, I have 20 rows. I'm going to try to make sure that I have 20 single crochets from here to here. And then however many rows you guys have from here to here, same deal, and then same deal over here. If you guys can't, it's totally fine. Just make sure that it's not completely condensed. Otherwise, it won't give you the stretch that this stitch actually gives you. So go ahead and work your way all the way around. When you guys make your way back down here, I'll meet you guys so that we can attach it into the same loop that our work is currently in, and then we can get started on talking about the fold. And we have just made our way all the way around with doing single crochets around the entirety of our piece. And from here, we're just going to slip stitch into the same loop that this first slip stitch row was into right here, because we don't want to take away any loops from the fold. But we're going to slip stitch into there. We're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. And then next, we're going to need to do a little bit of measuring. Where are my scissors? We're going to need to do a little bit of measuring so that we can get started on the fold. Okay, so I found my scissors and we are back, and now we are going to do a little bit of measuring. As you guys can see, I've inserted my stitch markers. This is just a visual to show you guys where you're going to be measuring. You're going to want to try this on, and when you try this on, be sure to pull this in as tightly as it would be as if you were actually wearing it. And then when we have that from these stitch markers, which is actually where our increase and decrease rows end right before we hit our underarm portion, we're going to take that and then we're going to wrap it around ourselves, around our back, well, over our arm, over our back, and then over our other arm, and then back to this other blunt section that we have right here. And then we're going to make a chain from those 2 points with that measurement that you guys just made. And just to let y'all know, my measurement that I have is a total of 25 inches or 64 centimeters, or that comes out to about 90 chains. So when we know those, we're going to insert our hook into any one of these stitch markers, if I can, and if we don't split the yarn. And then we're just going to make a chain that comes out to that length, and then we're going to slip stitch it back into this stitch marker that we have over here, and then we're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut. Okay, so we are back and we have just made our chain, and this is looking even crazier than it did before. But when we have this, now we're just going to go around with our rows of our first single crochet and then next a bunch of back loop half double crochets to form our fold. So in order to get that started, we're first going to do a row of single crochets. We're going to take a look at any one of these loops that is right next to where our body portion is, that is going into this fold chain that we made for ourselves. Then into the next available loop that we have, we're going to be inserting our hook. That's not it, this one right here. Insert our yarn, pull through. And then from here, we're just going to go in with a row of back loop single crochets, going all the way up and around over to the other side. So let's just do the first one together. Into this next available back loop that we have, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's do just one more actually. Into this next available loop, insert into that back loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And yeah, just keep doing this all the way around, including our chain. So when we hit our chain right here, we're not going to be going into the back. We're just going to go straight up into the chain all the way around. And then once we hit the end of this chain, we're going to be working down our decrease section and then down this side. And then I'll meet you guys back so that we can slip stitch it into the base chain together. So we have just made our way back around with our back loop single crochets around our body, around the chain, and then down the other side of our body. And now we're going to slip stitch into the next available loop that we have into that base chain. So we're going to kind of pull this apart. If yours is equally as difficult, go ahead and do the same without splitting the yarn. And then we're going to go in with a slip stitch. And then from here, we're going to be going in with back loop half double crochets. So how we are going to start this row off, because every other row is going to be different, we're going to insert our hook in through the next 2 loops that we have into our base with 1 slip stitch each. So here's 1 slip stitch, here's 2. From there, we're going to flip our work, and then this is just going to be a bunch of back loop half double crochets. So prepare for a half double, go into that first loop with a back loop half double crochet. There we go. And then go ahead and keep doing this all the way around. You guys are going to go up the body, around the chain, down the body, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can attach it into the base chain and then work our way up to the next row, which is going to be just a little bit different. So we've just made it down with our row of back loop half double crochets that went over our little chain section all the way down here, and we're going to attach it into the base chain, and then we're going to work our way up to the next row together. So since this is our first row of half double crochets, we're going to count out 2 loops into our base chain. Here's 1, here's 2, slip stitch into that second loop. And then into every other row, it's going to be different. So since we just did a slip stitch, or no, since we just counted out 2, we're actually just going to be slip stitching up into just 1 loop into our base. And then from here, we're going to flip our work and then do back loop half doubles going back the other way. And we're only doing it that way because these are back loop half doubles instead of doubles or singles. It's like right in between. So we need to combat that weird size. So into every, what is this? Since the single crochet was an odd number, into every even number row, we're going to be going in with either 2 slip stitches or counting out 2 to close off the row. So if that makes sense. Go ahead and just keep doing that all the way back and forth, making sure that you alternate between 2 to 1 slip stitches once we get into the base. And then I'll meet you guys back once when we get to this middle portion right here where our stitch marker is, so that we can seam it all up together. All right, coolio. So we are all the way back around doing our fold portion, which is just a bunch of back loop half double crochets. And we don't have any more loops left, so now we're actually just going to seam up the middle portion up until wherever you guys want it to start to curve out. So that's going to be completely up to you guys, but just to let you guys know, I inserted my stitch markers about in the 16th loop, and that is 5 inches up or 13 centimeters. And from here, we're just going to sandwich the 2 pieces that we have together and single crochet seam all the way up until we get to our stitch marker. So let's start that off together. After I untangle this, we're going to turn our work, insert our hook into our working yarn. And then from here, we're just going to insert our hook into the first available loop that we have into the front panel, and then into the next available loop we have into the back panel, and then we're going to single crochet. Let's do the next one together into the first available loop that we have into the front panel, and then the next available loop we have into the back panel, single crochet. And go ahead and keep doing this until you guys get to the point wherever you guys want to stop. Okay, so we have just finished up seaming up this middle portion that we have right here, and we have flipped it inside out. And then once when we have this part, we're going to want to connect the fold to this back portion that we have. And the first thing that we're going to have to do is figure out where the middle portion is into the back and also into the fold. And the easiest way that I figured out how to do this was just count at the same time on each side and then insert a stitch marker where it meets here, and then same thing for the back. And then once when we have that, we're going to take a look at the back and then count out and see however many loops we have over here. And then once we have that number, we're going to take the fold, we're going to take the fold and then count out the same amount of loops, insert our stitch marker, and then same thing for the other side. And then from here, we should have the same amount of loops from the back over to the fold. And then once we have that, we're ready to connect it with a slip stitch row. So once when we're ready, we're going to insert our hook into the corner of the back portion, which is our front panel that we're going to be talking about, and then insert it into where the stitch marker is, where our fold is. We're going to grab our yarn, make a slip knot, insert that loop onto our hook, pull through. We're going to do a chain up of 1 to secure, and then once we have that, we're going to be inserting our hook in through the first available loop we have in the front panel, and then the next available loop we have in the back panel. And from here, we're going to yarn over, pull through everything on our hook. Let's do the next one together. We're going to go into the next available loop into the front panel, next available loop into the back panel, and then slip stitch on through. And we're just going to keep doing that all the way down until we don't have any more loops left to go into. We're going to do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then we'll meet each other back so that we can go in with a little border along the top, and after that, little border along the bottom. And once when we have gone all the way across our back / fold portion with our slip stitches, we're actually just going to go all the way around with a row of single crochet just to clean up the edges just a little bit. So what I like to do is insert my hook into one of the back loops. It doesn't need to be exactly the middle, but somewhere in the middle, just eyeball it. insert that there, pull through, chain up 1 to secure. And then from here, just put 1 single crochet into every loop that we have, going all the way down until we are just 1 loop away from this little middle portion that we have, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do this little divot together. So going in with our single crochet row that goes on top of our fold, we have stopped 1 available loop right before we hit this middle seam that we have right here. What is this? And now we are going to do a little decrease of 3 just to keep this at a point. So into this first loop, because this is the loop that's available, this one obviously has the seam in it, we're going to go into that loop, yarn over, pull through. And then next we're actually going to be going into the seam, but there's not going to be a real loop for us to go into, so we're just going to have to find one, insert our hook into there, yarn over, pull through, and then into the next available loop that we have on the other side as well. And from here we're going to yarn over, pull through. We should have 4 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 4. No, how many was that? 3. And then once when we have that, we're going to go all the way back around with single crochets and then slip stitch it into this first single crochet that we made for ourselves and go ahead and cut and tie. Now that we have our single crochet row all seamed up, now we're going to do another row along the bottom, and this is going to be super duper simple. All we're going to do is just insert our hook into any one of these loops, does not matter which one. We're just going to make our way across with a row of single crochet, cleaning up this side, and just put 1 into every loop. And now that we are done with all that, now we need to start working on the sleeve. But right before we get into working on the sleeve, we actually have just a little sleeve starter to do. And the way we're going to start that off is just to make sure that our work is facing up towards us, making sure that we're looking at it pretty side out. And we're going to get started working on the left side first. And I'll show you guys how to do the right side, which is basically going to be the same premise. But since it's the opposite side, we're actually going to have to start it on a different section. But yeah, we'll just get started on the left and then we'll move on from there. So getting started with the left side first, we're first going to want to try this on, and then we're going to need to place 2 stitch markers down. Once when it's on, we're going to need to place a stitch marker in the front, right where the front fold, this is going to be weird, but right where the front fold naturally lays on top of our underarm portion, and then whatever loop is directly on top of that, we're going to be inserting our stitch marker into there. And then in the back, right where the fold meets the back portion. So it's going to be a little bit different if you guys take it off and try to just figure it out from there. So I would highly suggest trying it on because it would fit a lot differently. But just to let you guys know, this is what mine looks like. Yeah, I was about to say, I can't find my thing. This is what mine looks like. This first loop that's in the front is where the fold naturally lays once when I'm wearing it, which is directly on top of this first loop that I have. And then I just trace that all the way around, and then when I'm wearing it, this stitch marker lays directly over this back portion that we have right here. And then once when we have those 2 stitch markers in, make sure you guys do the other one as well, but once when we have those 2 stitch markers in, we can go in with our actual work. So getting started on the left side of our work, what we're going to do is actually take a look at this back portion that we have right here. We're first going to count up 2 loops. Here's 1, here's 2. We're going to be inserting our hook into that second loop from that corner, and then we're going to insert our yarn onto our hook. From here, we're going to do a row of double crochets going all the way across until we don't have any more loops left, and then we're going to be attaching it into this first stitch marker that we left for ourselves, where we're measuring where the fold folds naturally. And then we're going to go in with a row of single crochets all the way until we hit our next stitch marker, which is right where, when we're wearing it, because it's different when we're wearing it, right where this meets our back portion, and then we're going to slip stitch. We're basically just going in with a circle, so then that is going to be the catalyst that helps us go in with our sleeve. And it's going to be the same thing on the other side, but we're going to have to start it off just a little bit differently, so we'll do that together as well. But from here, we're just going to pull this through, prepare for a double crochet, and then into that first loop that's going across this underarm portion, go in with a double crochet, and then we're going to keep going in with double crochets going all the way across until we don't have any more loops left, and then I'll show you guys what to do from there. Alright, so we have just gone in with our row of double crochets going all the way across, and now we're ready to slip stitch into where our stitch marker is. And the row that we're going to be going into is actually going to be the second row from the bottom, because you guys can see there's this ribbing that we can go into, which is perfect to go in with our single crochets so that we can start our sleeves. So wherever your stitch marker is, or Another way to do it is just to see where the next loop is that lays naturally next to the hook. We're going to insert our hook into that loop, take out our stitch marker. Actually, it's this one. We're going to yarn over and pull through. And then from here, we're going to turn our work. I know this is a lot, but we're going to turn our work upside down. So now we're working into the fold with single crochets going all the way across until we hit our next stitch marker, which should be, when we're wearing it, right next to where our back portion is. So from here, we're just going to be going into each of these loops with a single crochet until we hit our next stitch marker, and then we're going to slip stitch it into that same loop that we started off doing our double crochets in into that back portion. But I'll meet you guys back so that we can do that together. Okay, so we have just gone in with a row of single crochets. You guys can kind of see it. It's this right here. We attached it into the back loops of that row of half double crochets that we went into our fold. And now that we've hit our stitch marker, we're just going to be inserting our hook back into this loop that's into the side base of our back portion with a slip stitch. We're going to chain up one and cut. So we're just going to flip this around really quickly. And then into that same loop that our first double crochet is into, we're going to insert, pull through with a slip stitch, chain up one, and then cut. And then we're about to do the other side together. So we just did the left side together. As you guys can see, this is here. And now we're going to do the right side, which is the same sequence, but we're actually going to have to start on the opposite side since our work is on the opposite side. So we're actually going to start working into the underarm portion that is right next to the front. We're first going to be inserting our hook into that front, going into the underarm portion with double crochets, and then single crocheting around. So basically the same thing, just in the opposite direction. But once when we get here, I have inserted my stitch marker into where this loop naturally would meet this underarm portion. So I'm going to insert my hook into there, insert my yarn onto my hook, and pull through. From here, I'm going to prepare for a double crochet and then go into this first underarm portion loop with our double crochets. We're first going into this direction first. Go in with a double crochet and then put one double crochet into every loop, going all the way across until we hit our back height that we have right here, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, so working into this back portion, we have our double crochets that went all the way across. Now we're at the back portion into the height. We're going to count up those two loops. Here's one, here's two. Slip stitch into that second loop to close that off. And then from here, we're going to be inserting our hook into where we have our stitch marker for this other portion that we have right here. I know this is a little confusing, but once we have this on, it'll all make sense. But we're going to insert our hook also into that loop. We're going to yarn over, pull through everything like that, and now this portion is all connected. We have just formed our sleeve hole, but we're not quite done yet. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to be going into this second to last row of our back loop half double crochets into these loops with single crochets going all the way across until we hit where we first inserted our hook. And it should be the same amount of single crochets that we had on the other side. So go ahead and go all the way around. Once we reach that same loop, do a slip stitch, chain up one and cut, and then we can go in with our sleeves. And we have just finished up going in with our little sleeve starters on both sides. I know it's a little confusing, but y'all are troopers for sticking with us. But once when we get here, now we can actually just start going in with the sleeve, which is super duper simple. So all that is just inserting our hook somewhere along the bottom right here, inserting our yarn onto our hook, and then making a chain that is as long as you guys want your sleeve to be. I'm going to go ahead and make a chain of 60 inches, and that comes out to about 12 inches or 30 centimeters. And for me, this is going to be a 3/4 length sleeve. So go ahead and adjust to whatever you guys want from there, and then I'll meet you guys back once we have our sleeve, or our chain. And now that we have our chain, what we're going to do from here is just go up with a row of slip stitches. So we're going to block off that last chain, do a chain up of one, and then into that loop that we blocked off with a second chain from our hook, go in with a slip stitch. And then from there, go ahead and put one slip stitch into every loop that we have going all the way up our chain, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can slip stitch it into the base. And now that we've made our way all the way up with our first row of slip stitches, now we're just going to slip stitch into the base. So all that is inserting our hook into that next available loop, doing a slip stitch to close off that row. And then to start up the next row, we're going to slip stitch into that next available loop, flip our work, and now we're just going to be doing a bunch of rows of back loop slip stitches. Once we make our way back up, slip stitch into the base. And then we're going to be working all around this little single crochet section that we made for ourselves, and then we'll meet each other back when we don't have any more loops left to go into so that we can seam this all up together. We've now made it all the way around with our sleeve. As y'all can see, we don't have any more loops left to go into. And now the only thing we have left to do is just go in with a single crochet seam, closing everything up together. And the first thing that you guys are going to want to do is just make sure that your work is flipped inside out so that the seam is faced on the inside, same as the seam that we have in the front. But when it is flipped inside out, we're going to insert our hook in through both of the corners. And once we have that, we're going to pull through. And then we're just going to do the first few together into the first available loop into the front panel, and then into the next available loop into the back panel. I'm going to insert our hook like that, and then single crochet. Let's do just one more together. We're going to insert our hook in through the next available loop in the front, and then into the next available loop in the back, and then single crochet. Go ahead and keep doing this all the way down. Once we don't have any more loops left, go ahead and do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then do this entire sleeve sequence plus the seam on the other side, and then I'll meet you guys back. Okay, cool. So we have just finished up doing both of our sleeves, and now we can go on with the rest of the body portion. So once we get here, we are going to be switching out our colors, and we're just going to start off by making a single crochet row. Sorry, I couldn't think. Just going across the bottom of what we already have, and we're not going to do anything fancy into there. So all I'm going to do is insert my hook somewhere in the back. This is just purely for my own peace of mind. But somewhere in the back, pull through, chain up 1 to secure, and then just go all the way around with 1 single crochet row. When we have made our way all the way around, what we're going to do from here is figure out how long we want our waistband to be. And I've already measured mine out, and I want mine to be a total of 3 inches or 8 centimeters. So I'm going to start off by making a chain of 12. Now that we have our chain, what we're going to do from here is block off that last chain. We're going to do a chain up of 2. Prepare for a half double crochet, and then into that loop that we blocked off, or the third one from our hook, we're going to go in with a half double crochet. And from here, just put 1 half double crochet into every loop that we have going back down our chain. And then once we hit our base, we'll meet each other back so that we can slip stitch it into there together. Now that we've made our way all the way down, what we're going to do from here is slip stitch it into that second available loop that we have into the base. So we're going to count up 1, count up 2 into that second. We're going to do a slip stitch, and now this first row of half double crochet is all closed up. And then I know that in the top portion we went into every other row, basically going into every second, every first, every second, every first loop, but we're not going to be alternating like that. From here we're just going to be going up with 1, 2 slip stitches, flip our work, and then do back loop half double crochets. And that's basically going to be it. But we're going into every 2 instead of alternating between 1 and 2 because this is the waist portion. We do want this to be able to cinch in just a little bit more than what the top half is. So go ahead and just keep doing that. Everything should cinch in quite nicely. And then I'll meet you guys back when we have this entire section all finished up, and I'll meet you guys back so that we can seam it together. And we have now made our way all the way back around with our waistband, and all we're going to need to do is just sandwich everything together and seam it up. So the only thing that we're going to need to do in preparation for that is just make sure that our work is flipped inside out so that all of our seams, including this one and the seam in the middle, and then also the seam that we have for the sleeves, is all facing one side. So I'm just going to sandwich mine in this direction. Don't mind me wrestling with my yarn, but all I'm going to do is insert my hook in through both corners that I have. So here's 1, and then here's 2. Once we have that, we're going to pull that through, chain up 1 to secure. And from here into the next available loop that we have into the front panel, and then into the next available loop we have in the back panel, insert and single crochet. Same way we've done pretty much everything else so far. So go ahead and keep doing this all the way down, and then I will meet you guys back so that we can get started on the dress. And now that we have seamed up our waistband, we're now going to go in along the bottom portion of our waistband with a row of single crochet, just so that it's easier for us to go into the bodycon dress portion of this. So this is going to be pretty easy. Once when we went into the half double crochet, we were attaching it into every 2 loops that we had along the top. So I'm just going to insert my hook somewhere along the side into one of these first side half double crochets, insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, chain up 1 to secure. And then once when we have that, we're going to be putting 2 single crochets into each side half double. So here is the next, well actually it's going to the same one. Into the same one, we're going to be going in with another single crochet. And then let's go into the next one together as well. This is our next side half double. We're going to go in with 1 and then 2. And we're just going to keep putting 2 single crochets into every side half double all the way around until we reach our first single crochet that we made for ourselves. We're going to connect with a slip stitch, and then we're going to take a look and see where we need to start working on our dress, because it's going to be worked in 2 panels, a front and a back. So as you guys can see, we have just finished up going in with a row of single crochet along the bottom of our waistband, and we have also gone in with 1 panel of our skirt portion. But once when we have our single crochet portion along here, the skirt portion is going to be fairly simple. It's going to be made in a front and a back panel, and then we're going to seam them up along the sides together. I just did the front so that you guys can see the general shape that we're going for. But the first thing that we're going to have to do is figure out where our sides are. And I have already figured out where mine are because my front panel is already finished up. You just want to make sure that you guys have the same amount of loops that you guys have in the front as you guys have in the back. And then from there, you're going to want to figure out the length of the skirt that you guys want, but it is going to be a little bit higher than the total length of the skirt. So you guys get to figure that out from there. But I have already went ahead and measured mine out. I'm just going to go ahead and insert my hook into this side loop that I have. And I'm going to make a chain of 44, or that comes out to about 10 inches or 25 centimeters. Now that we have our chain, what we're going to do from here is block off that last chain, do a chain up of 1, and then go into that loop that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, with a slip stitch. And then from here, go ahead and just put 1 slip stitch into every loop that we have, going back down our chain. Once we reach our chain, we'll meet each other back so that we can connect into the base, just like how we've been doing. And then we are going to do some increases along the edges, so I'll meet you guys back so that we can do those as well. So we have just gone in with our first row of slip stitches, and right before we get connected, we're going to talk about this piece just a little bit. So as you guys can see, this is the general shape that we're going for, because we are going to have these little arcs along the side that connects the front to the back. So in order to do that, you're going to want to figure out where you guys want your blunt portion to be, which is this one right here. And I just figured out where my middle point was, and then I counted out as thick as I wanted it to be, and then I have inserted my stitch markers. And then also, when it comes to doing the increases or decreases, depending on what side you're going into, we are going to be doing our regular increases of just 1 into every other row, but we need it to curve a little bit more instead of just going in straight at a V. So in order to get that arc, we're actually going to be doing a couple rows of our regular increases of 1, but then also we're also going to have a couple rows of increases of 2. So that is going to be all up to you guys and however you guys want to space that out. But all I'm going to be doing is doing an increase of 1 into every other row, which I will be showing you guys. And then also into every 5th row, I will be doing our increase of 2, which is this little chunk that you guys can see right here, which extends out just a little bit further. So that's just my sequence. You guys can figure that out, whatever you guys want to do. And then also just make sure that when you guys are going up with your increases, that you guys don't extend past this middle portion, because we do need to have this middle chunk as well. But once when you guys have figured yours out, go ahead and insert your stitch markers, and then we can get started with the rest of this piece. So now that we are back with our first row of slip stitches, all we're going to do is insert our hook into this next available loop to close off this row. And then to go into the next row, we're going to slip stitch into the next available loop. We're going to flip our work, and then we're going to be working all the way down with back loop slip stitches. And then we are going to be doing an increase every time we get to the end. So when we're working our way out towards the bottom, we're going to be doing an increase, and that depends if we're doing an increase of 1 or 2. And I will show you guys how to do both. So go ahead and just keep working your way all the way down, and then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do the increase together. Now that we've made our way all the way down to the end, we're going to do an increase of 1. So how we do that is actually the same way that we did the top portion. We're going to be going in with a chain out of 2, flip out our work, flip our work, and then insert our hook in through the second loop that we have from our hook with a back loop slip stitch. And from here, go all the way down with back loop slip stitches. Once we get to the base, go ahead and connect it into the base just like how we've been doing. And then keep going back and forth until you guys are ready to do your increase of 2. Like I said, for me, it's going to be my 5th row, so I'll meet you guys back when I reach my 5th. So we are back, and I have made it all the way over to where I'm going to be doing my increase of 2, which is my 6th row. And all we're going to do is basically the same way that we've been doing our increases of 1. But instead of just doing a chain out of 2, which is what we've been doing, we're going to do a chain out of 3. And then once we go in, we're going to skip that loop that's closest to the hook, do a back loop slip stitch into the second, back loop slip stitch into the third, and then also into the body of what we're doing. So let's do the first bit together. We're going to insert our hook into that second back loop from the hook with a slip stitch, into that third back loop from the hook, slip stitch, and from here just go all the way down with back loop slip stitches connecting into the base just like how we've been doing. And then once when you work your way back up, depending on your pattern, you guys can be doing an increase of 1 or an increase of 2. But like I said, I'm going to be doing my increases of 2 in increments of 5. And then I'm going to stop once when I get to this next stitch marker so that we can do this longer portion in the middle. And then we're going to do our decreases. So go ahead and keep doing your increases all the way until you're ready to do this longer chunk right here. And then I'll meet you guys back. We now have our increase section on one side of our skirt, and we have made our way to the middle-ish, and now we're about to do this little extender portion that we have right here. So you guys can go ahead and figure out how long you want the dress in total to be, and from this point down to where I'm going to stop, I'm going to make a chain of 20, and that comes out to about 5 inches or 13 centimeters. And then from there, we're just going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then work all the way back down with back loop slip stitches. And this part's going to be blunt, so nothing fancy is going to go into here. And then once when you guys have reached your other stitch marker, so that you guys aren't going to do this portion anymore, I'll meet you guys back so that we can do our decreases together. So we are back, and we now have this middle extender portion, and now we're going to start working on the decrease, which is basically the same part that we had over here with our increase. So wherever you guys had your increases of 2, we're going to be doing a decrease of 3. And then wherever you guys had an increase of 1, we're going to be doing a decrease of 2. So we're going to be doing 1 of each together, and then you guys can apply it to whatever pattern you guys have when it comes to your increase section. We're first going to be starting off with our decrease of 3. So once we have this, we have made our way all the way up to this last point that I had on the other side. We're going to do a chain up of 1 and flip our work. Once we have that, we're going to be going into the next 3 back loops with a decrease. So we're going to insert our hook into that first back loop, yarn over, pull through. Second back loop, yarn over, pull through. We should have 3 loops on our hook. And then third back loop, yarn over. And since these are slip stitches, we're just going to yarn over and pull through 1, 2, 3, and 4, all at the same time. And that's what we do once when we have our decrease of 3, or if we're looking at the other side, that is our increase of 2. And then go ahead and work all the way down, putting 1 back loop slip stitch into every row, connect into the base just like usual. Once we work our way back up, and then we are on our way to working back down, we'll do a decrease of 2, which is a regular decrease, and then we will continue on from there. So we just made our way all the way back up, and we are on our decrease section, and we're just going to do a decrease of 2 together, and that decrease of 2 is equivalent to our increase of 1 on our increase side. So you guys go ahead and match it up from there, and also just keep in mind that we are only decreasing into every other row because that's how we did our increases as well. That's just a reminder. But once when we get here, how we're going to do a decrease of 1 is we're going to do a chain up of 1, flip our work, and then into this first available back loop, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. Into this next available back loop, we're going to yarn over, not split the yarn over, pull through all 3 loops that's on our hook, and that is our decrease of 2 on this side. So go ahead and just continue on with whatever pattern you guys have with your increases and decreases. Once when you guys reach your side portion, go ahead and cut and tie, and then do your other side, which I already have done, and then we'll meet each other back to seam it up, and then we just have a little bit more of our detail left to go into the skirt. And we are all back with doing both our front and our back panel when it comes to the skirt portion. And the next thing that we're going to have to do is just seam up the sides. I have already seamed up one side, so we're going to be doing the next together. The first thing you're going to want to do though is flip your work inside out so that all of your seams are facing the same direction. And then once you guys have that, it's going to be done the same exact way. So we're just going to be doing the first few together. We're going to insert our hook into any one of these loops, making sure we're going in through the front panel and the back panel at the same time. Insert our yarn onto our hook, pull through, chain up 1 to secure. And then once we have that, we're just going to make sure we go in through the same loops into the front and the back at the same time. So into this next available loop we have in the front panel, insert your hook, and then into the next available loop we have in the back panel, insert your hook, and then single crochet. And keep doing that all the way down until you guys don't have any more loops left. Once when you guys hit the end, go ahead and cut and tie, and then do it to the other side. And now that we have seamed up both of our sides, the next thing that we can do is actually go in with our little side detail that we have right here. So this part's actually going to be pretty simple. What we're going to do is we're actually going to leave this faced wrong side out so that we can seam it in together easier. But we're just going to insert our hook in through one of the corner loops. And from here, we're just going to go up and around with a row of single crochet to start this off. But go ahead and do this. And then I'll meet you guys once when we get to this middle point, because we are going to be putting a single crochet into this seam that we have right here. And then also, once when we get to this little increase/decrease portion right here, what we're going to want to do once we get here is just put 1 single crochet into each of these side slip stitch rows. So for example, from here to here, I have a total of 18 rows. So I'm going to want to have 18 single crochets into this section. And then other than that, go ahead and just keep going all the way up until we meet our seam. Now that we've made our way all the way down to the seam, we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet into this last seam that we have right here. So we're going to insert into there. I know it's going to feel a little weird because it's not faced upright, but from here just single, let's try that again. From here, single crochet, and then work your way all the way back down with single crochets. We've now made it all the way to the end of our first row of single crochets when it comes to our side detail, and what we're going to do from here is just a bunch of rows of back loop slip stitches. But when we get down to this middle loop that we made for ourselves, we're going to be doing a decrease of 3. So just to start off this row together, we're going to insert our hook in through this first available back loop with a slip stitch. Go ahead and keep doing this all the way down until we reach the loop that is right before this middle loop that we left for ourselves with that seam loop. And then I'll meet you guys back so that we can do our decrease of 3 together. We made our way all the way down to this middle side seam that we have, and we have the loop right before it, the loop that we went into that seam with, and then the one right after, we're going to be going in with a decrease of 3. So into this first available loop, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through. Into that middle seam loop, insert, pull through, and then the one right after that, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops on our hook, and then that is our decrease of 3 that we're going to do into every row once when we meet this inside seam right here. But for the rest of this, go ahead and just put back loop slip stitches going all the way up. Once we make it to the end, chain up 1, flip our work, and then go back down with back loop slip stitches, remembering to do our decrease of 3 in the middle. And then we're just going to keep doing that until we get a length that is wide enough to help us fit this dress over ourselves. And then once when you guys have that, we're going to meet each other back so that we can seam it all up together. So we are back, and we have just finished up going in with our little arc that we have right here, and now we're just going to seam it up together. The only thing that we need to make sure before we go into this is that our dress is still faced wrong side out so that all of our seams are facing the same direction. But once when we have this, all we're going to do is insert our hook into the front panel's corner loop, and then also into the back panel's corner loop. Insert our yarn, pull through, and then chain up 1 to secure. And from here, we're just going to go in with a row of single crochet, sandwiching both the front and the back panel together. So let's insert our hook into this first available loop in the front panel, and then into this next available loop we have in the back panel, and then single crochet. So the same way we've been seaming up everything so far. Go ahead and go all the way down until you guys don't have any more loops left to go into. Once we reach that point, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then you're going to do this entire thing on the other side. And now that we're done with our side details, the last thing we have to do is weave in all of our ends. Now that we've woven in our ends, this is our finished full dress. We haven't made a dress in such a long time and it feels so good to make one. I love this one so much. There's a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by answering if you've introduced someone to crochet, or if you haven't, what's your dream project to introduce someone to crochet with. Good luck to everyone who enters. Also, give this video a thumbs up and let us know what you liked about it, or if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down, but let me know how we can improve. If you love it, be sure to hit that bell so you know when there's new uploads for you, and be sure to share us on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and Facebook, links down below. If you want to buy this piece or any other piece on the channel, links to Poshmark, Depop, and Etsy are down there too, along with tools used. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll see y'all in the next one.